Hey team, Glenn Azar here. Welcome back to the Building Better Humans Project podcast. It is Mayhem Monday, and as always, that means we have
Mayhem
in the building.
Hello.
We did lessons learned first.
Yep. You got a lesson learned?
I got a lesson learned. The Brisbane Broncos, men's and women's team, reign supreme.
Yay.
And the lesson learned from that for me is that, and I could go really in depth in this, and I know we've talked about it, but the Broncos were underdogs in the men's. Reece Walsh has been getting slammed all year as a bit of a pretty boy. People don't like the way he does things. And halfway through the year, he was struggling, had an injury, and then at 23 years of age, he dominated. And I've got a lot of mates who are Penrith fans. You want to call it however you want to call it. And then Melbourne Storm fans, and he dominated those games and literally turned it around. And I listened to him being interviewed, and he said one of the keys was that he got pulled up by the coach when he injured himself and had a few weeks out. And Madge said to him, "Don't think about football. I don't want to see you around here for a few weeks." And what he was trying to teach him, and he said he eventually taught me throughout the year, is when you go home, be the dad, be the partner, be the best mate to your mates. And that's what he's been doing. He's just been having fun and living his life and not being the stereotypical footballer, which rubs people the wrong way. And then, of course, he, puts nail polish on and things like that rubs people the wrong way. And they hate that he then comes out and dominates. But he said when you're on playing football or training for football or in the weights room, anything to do with, as he termed it, work, which is his job, then you be on 100%. So I thought that was pretty cool, having that capacity for any of us to switch off from our professional life to our personal life. So many people that I've coached through businesses bring all their stuff home. If they're having a bad day, if they throw the bag on the floor, they kick the dog, they rouse on the kids, and then all of a sudden their partner and kids are like, what do we do? And so
or vice versa, you might bring your problems from home to your professional, say, job, or if you're an athlete, you might let it affect your performance.
And for us, like as coach and partners and then parents, and then we've got a lot going on. And so it's even probably more so for us that we've got to be conscious. And I've definitely had to, at times, and you'll pull me up on this, be a bit more attentive, because I get when the pressure's on at work, in business, I get in hard business mode. And you just can't live like that. I live like that for years, but you can't live like that really, I don't think.
No.
So that's my lessons learned. Go the Bronx.
Go the Bronx. Mine's similar. You can come back from anything as long as you work hard enough.
Yeah.
And don't give up.
Yeah, 3-4 games in a row that they come back from ridiculous. Like, who's 14-0 down?
My voice hurt so much.
We went to the Panthers game.
Oh God! And I slapped you in the face when we won. Like, good ways.
Actually slapped me in the face.
Good ways. I was just like, I couldn't.
She slapped me in the face in better ways, but in this 52,000 people around us, it was fine.
Mum watches this.
Oh, sorry, Mum. 52,000 people. I've never experienced an atmosphere like it.
Yeah, what a beautiful
bigger
game
than
that
State of
was.
Origin atmosphere even. It was just, and we were 14-0 down, and I'm the first one to put my hand on heart at the halftime thinking they're not coming back against the Panthers at 14-0 down.
And the people we were sitting with were pretty cool. We didn't know them, obviously. They were just strangers, but there was a Panther supporter down here. There's a Panther supporter right next to me, and I was kind of like internally beefing with her, because every time the Panthers would score, she'd be like, "Yeah, I
Can I tell a quick story?
I hate you." Wow.
When this first happened, the people beside us, there was a lady beside us and the guy in front, and the lady beside us was cheering pretty loud, just cheering for her team. That's what you do. And when he looked at me and she'd had a couple of drinks and said, "I don't think I can sit here."
But that was softened a little bit when Marley FaceTimed us and was like, "What's for dinner?" And I was like, "What's for dinner? I'm watching the footy." And then everyone just started laughing around us.
Everyone around us was going, "What's for dinner? What's for dinner?"
Yeah. I was like, "Shit on a stick. Shut up and watch the footy."
And then when the Bronx won, the guy in front of us was a Panthers supporter. He goes, "Oh, congratulations, guys. We've had our turn. But anyway, what's for dinner?"
Classic.
So, coming back from, there's always lessons in sport, eh? In every sport.
Yeah.
There's so many similarities to things that you can do in life. Yes, it's fun and it was entertaining, but we're people that do like to extract lessons from everything.
Yeah.
So
I've even learnt a few new things with exercise, particularly since I started doing my S&C with Declan. Shout out to the tactical physio. Some rotational movements that he's given me. Yeah, I'm really enjoying that side of training as well.
That's another lesson I could add in, actually, talking about Declan, is the importance of surrounding yourself with good people. We talk about that all the time, but particularly as an athlete, but even for everyday people, surrounding yourself with passionate people. Like, he's incredibly passionate about what he does. You can tell it in the way he moves, the way he talks, because I sit in on some sessions, and even when we leave, like, you'll look at me and go, he's good, eh? And I go, yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
And we're loyal, so we've had other physios we've stuck with who have been good, but probably not as passionate, which means turning up on time and all those sort of things, as Declan. And so we've stayed with certain people over the time. But since we've switched to Declan for this camp, because Mili has a fight coming up on the 29th of November for the Australian Super Bantamweight title.
On the Gold Coast, Surfers
Gold
Paradise.
Coast,
if anybody is free, come and live out the last bit of our year with us and watch me bang on for the Aussie title.
But yeah, Declan's a part of that camp.
Strap another belt.
Declan's a part of that camp. And so surrounding yourself with passionate people, and you're not going to find in every vocation, in everyday life, lots of passionate people, but you don't need a lot. 1 or 2 passionate people is pretty good.
Yeah. I think we've got a pretty good team for my boxing career now.
Do you ever feel a bit delusional?
Sometimes. Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because we believe in what we're doing, and if you're a strict enthusiast of the sport, you would say we don't have the background. You needed to start when you were 10 or you were 15, or no, we didn't do all of that. But so sometimes it's just us that feels that believes in the thing. So then when you find someone like a Declan, because I just said to him, this is what it is and this is what we want, and he's like, yeah, like let's do it. Like
he created a profile for me, and he put one of the passwords as "and the new."
For those that don't know boxing, that's the best word you ever want to hear when you fight for a title.
And the new.
So, yeah, he's equally as passionate about us, about our goal, which is pretty cool. So then you feel less delusional. So if you ever feel like, this is for the people listening or watching, if you ever feel like you're reaching for goals that you're maybe just not good enough to reach, who am I to achieve that goal? Who am I to even think I should achieve that goal? Find some more passionate people to surround yourself with, and they will lift you up. So, yeah, that's another lesson.
Yeah, well, I put out an NGL link on my Instagram last week for people's lessons learned, and also for any topics that people would like us to cover. So we'll go through some of those. We haven't got an incredibly large amount of time today, so we won't. We might spread them out through the podcast, but I'll read them today anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll do people's lessons learned. Sorry, give me one sec. Here we go. I've learned that people are fighting their own battles. Sometimes we get so inward about our own BS that we forget others have struggles too.
Yeah, and that's a good one, because I think when you get stuck in your own struggles, it's easy to forget that other people also have them. And maybe they have them worse. We don't know, but we get so internalised with ours that it's easy to not focus on other people's. I heard this saying, I'm sure we may have mentioned it, that if a group of people in a room, and you all got to put your problems on the table and then pick up someone else's, most of us would look at it and take our own back.
Yeah.
Because we'd look at someone else and go, ooh, I don't want that.
Yeah. It's like at the weekend when we were doing our sprints that Declan prescribed for me. They were so hard. But then you saw those people having that meeting.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of people in a wheelchair. And like, as hard as that session was, they can't do that session.
Yeah, and they were watching us, bound. And I was doing every second sprint, which was a stretch for me. It was hard. I don't like to run and let alone sprint like that. And that's what occurred to me. As we were doing the lap, I was watching them. There was a couple of them in wheelchairs, and obviously they're carers. They're having the meeting at the back of this hall, and every now and then they'll just look over and watch us. And at first I thought they probably think we're delusional, but then I realised they're probably thinking, geez, I wish I could do that, because they don't get the opportunity to do that. And was just a real thing as I was feeling some pain to go through, and I did a little video on it, which I hadn't released yet, but it was just what was in my head in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's a privilege to have the capacity to be in a situation like business owners. Oh, business is a struggle. Yeah, but that's a privilege in a way, because plenty of people don't have the opportunity to have a minimum wage job based off upbringing, education, where they started from, just how life kicks them in the gut sometimes. Even if you listen to this show and you're not in business, you have the opportunity to change who you are, because obviously you're into building better humans, you're into personal development. Not everyone is. And so from that point of view, we at least have the capacity to change things.
Yeah.
Business is hard for us sometimes, but it's a privilege that I've been doing adventure professionals for 20 years, pretty much, or that sort of industry. So I'd never want to complain about that.
Every time I tell people what you do, they're like, what a life. And I'm like, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good life that you've created.
I went and saw the doctor recently because I was doing that sleep studies, and I respect medicine obviously because I worked in that field for a period of time, but I had a less than 6 minute meeting and I thought this must be free because it was just a recap and it was $195 and I was like, what? But she's going, oh, that sounds like an amazing job, and I think, says you.
$195 for 6 minutes?
Yeah, but I'm sitting in under these lights and all that, and there was no windows in her office, and she's probably my age or a little bit older. And I'm thinking, yeah, actually, I get your point. Here we are sitting under fluoro lights, literally not a window in the building, and I'm outdoors. And we're helping people achieve really cool things. We're seeing people go through doubt. I just did a Kokoda track info evening the other day, and there's 11, 12 and 15-year-old kids on there who are coming with their mum and dad. Like, how cool that we get to facilitate stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to our next one. When I first read this one, I remember I read it to you and I cried a little bit, so hopefully I can get through it without crying. Deep breath. All right, it reads, I saw something that made me come to realize that our parents are still figuring out life too. It made me cry. Oh my God, stop it. It made me cry because I'm still young, and sometimes I rely on my parents to know everything and be everything, and they're just humans doing the best at life the same as me.
Can I ask a question why that hits you emotionally? Is it thinking about your parents or is it thinking about you as a parent?
Both. Yeah.
Because I thought more the latter, because I know you have at times beaten yourself up and saying, I'm not a good mum, and I think every mum and every dad I've thought that at different times. But if we're really honest, we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah.
And we don't know. Like, you had children young, so did I. And at 20, now you look back and go, I didn't know anything. Like, I wasn't equipped for this.
At all, man. At all.
Apparently nature thinks we're equipped for it.
I know. Yeah, no, it made me think about both sides. Like, my mum, I was pretty horrible to her when I was a young teenager. And then I think about her and, like, she was just doing life as well.
Yeah, and your dad had passed away really in your young teenage years, so she was doing all of that. When you look back at it now, with that going on as well, which as a 14, 15-year-old, you're feeling, I guess, how it feels for me to have lost dad, but you're not really considering how it is for mum to have lost her partner.
Yeah.
So, which is a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
As adults, we can think back to that, but as children, children are inherently selfish. And I say that all the time, not disrespectfully, but when the boys will do things, I'll say to Mel, they're just selfish because that's the age. It's just, how does this affect me? And it stays that way right through until 18 or 19 for a lot of kids. So it's just a part of their development and growth, but that means we were also that way.
Yeah. But yeah, then I think about my parenting and how, like, obviously we're still figuring out life too. And yeah.
You can answer this really honestly, and I say that because I know she will, but do you think I've added any value in that area to the parenting with the boys?
Yeah, 100%.
And the only reason I ask that is because I've got older kids, so I can look at all the things I did right, but mostly I look at the things I didn't do well. And so then maybe sometimes I can be too strict on the boys because I'm trying to curb some things I could see happening down the track because I just gave the kids everything. And now I don't do that as much with the boys, as you notice, because I want them to earn some things. But sometimes Mili will say to me, it feels like you're on them all the time. You haven't said that for a while, but it does. So I try and be more conscious of that. So last night while she was at work, I took them out and we got Baskin Robbins.
Literally, I was like, oh, no worries.
She sent me a message going, I said, well, you guys are gallivanting around.
He's like, oh, we're getting ice cream. I'm like, where? IGA, or where are we getting ice cream? Baskins and Robbins.
Super duper from the freezer?
Like 50-cent Macca's cone, or no. Full-blown Baskins and Robbins. Okay, no worries. You guys do that while I'm working.
And she sent me a text saying, well, you guys are gallivanting around.
I'm over here trying to pay for that ice cream.
$26. And then tomorrow the boys will say, you never do anything.
Literally. They really can be so entitled and selfish. Love them, but seriously.
I guess a quick one from that last one is, if you're a parent, just know you're doing the best you can.
Yeah. Oh, and I saw this other one that I sent to you, and it was a lady saying, your kids get to come home and feel safe every day. And, like, no matter what type of parenting you're doing in your life, like, as long as you're not being a shit parent, if your kids can say that, oh, I just can't wait to go home and just
At least I'm
feel
safe.
safe
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that environment, you're doing more than you think you're doing. A
And
lot
if
of children are like, I don't want to go home because
Yeah.
I'm scared, and we work in that field where they can't go home.
If you've ever been told as a parent that your children hate you, I've been told by every one of my children except Christian. Only because he doesn't understand the concept. And typically it's at a certain age when you just say no to things. I hate you. And Marley said it to me once about because I said no to something, and then an hour later he's down explaining to me some fish he caught or something, or this jump that he did. Like, they move on really quickly.
Yeah.
So you can't take that stuff personally.
I remember when he first ever said it to me, and I was cut deep, because if you saw how Marley was when he was like a baby up until maybe he was 3 or 4, started really trying to stamp his authority. He was so in love with me, like the way he used to look at me, the way that he always wanted to be around me. So the first time he said, I hate you, I was like cut. And like I Googled how to deal with it.
And it said, get over yourself.
And then someone said, tell him you love him. And then I was like, oh, yeah. So he goes, and then the next time, I hate you. And I'm like, well, I love you. And it just made him even more angry.
The psychologist,
Which if you know Marley, that's Marley.
psychologist who wrote that, going, they'll love this one.
So it actually turned into like he'd be like, I hate you. I'm like, well, I love you. And he'd be like, ah, little win for me.
She'll say, you're so cute.
He hates that
He
too.
does hate that.
I'm not cute. Yes, you are. You're so cute. All right, we got another one that says, I've actually changed my mind about influencers. Now I saw your post on Insta about it. It's so true. We judge people based on things we know nothing about. True. We do.
We judge people based on our lens of the world.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know anything about a thing, it's very easy to judge that thing because you're not coming from a place of experience or education, just opinion. And as they say, opinions are like bums. Everyone's got one. And some are smelly.
Do they say that?
I don't know. I've added that bit in.
I was going to say I've never heard that last bit. I've only heard one. Oh, no, I won't say it. It's not for this.
That's not for this podcast.
No, it's not. All right. Okay, that's the end of people's lessons learned, I guess. Yeah. But we got some things that people want us to talk about on the podcast. So we said, one person said, you and Glenn should interview people together. It'll be good to get your different perspectives.
Yeah, I had a couple like that on mine. I didn't get as many when I put it out, but just mentioning people like Shalom, and for those who don't know, Shalom's just played in the grand final for the Broncos. She won the NRLW Rookie of the Year. She's been picked in the Samoan team, and we've been working with her, I first met her when she was 12. So people thought that would be good to hear from her, which I actually think would be cool. And I used to interview people a lot, but at the moment we use Podshaped's studio, which is a 45 minutes to an hour drive for us. Then you've got to get schedules together. Other people book into the studio. They're running a bit late today. So there's all this stuff that goes on that makes it hard. So one day I'd love to have a studio at home.
Yeah.
And then we could definitely interview people a
Invite
lot
people
more.
to come and interview. Yeah, but that's a great idea.
But for now, you're stuck with us.
Yeah, sorry. Not sorry. I mean, and then these two are about adventure, so they're more so for you. So one said, Glenn, what's your favourite adventure that you run?
That is the most common question I get in the adventure field. What's your favourite adventure? And the truth is that you can't pick one, and people go, you're fence sitting, because every one of the adventures I do is different for a different reason. If I absolutely had my, arm being twisted and you've got to make a decision, I would say Kokoda. And particularly for a few reasons. One, obviously the affinity with Papua New Guinea, Australia's military history, having been a veteran myself. What actually happened over there was from both sides, from the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels, from the Aussie Diggers, and even for the Japanese side. It's a journey that's physical, mental and emotional. And people come over thinking, it's a physical challenge, and they realise it's mental and it's emotional as well. I've seen grown men, SAS soldiers, cry when it's done right and when you explain what happened there. Mates of mine, one in particular who's the toughest human I know, full stop, and I've watched him cry on Brigade Hill because it brought back memories of his best mate being killed in Afghanistan. So it's a real journey. So if I had to pick one, it's that. But then I think about dog sledding in the Yukon, which you've come on. It's just so beautiful and pristine. It does have the emotional tie-in of New Guinea, but it's amazing. You can actually, and I have done this in past trips when the weather's good enough, you can go 1,500 miles with the dogs, with ski machines, and not run into another human.
Yeah.
There's not many places in the world you can go 1,500 miles and never run into someone. I think about Kilimanjaro, Africa. It's very similar to PNG to me, but I just love Africa. And then climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, it's physically demanding. So it's got the physicality of a Kokoda, but it's also got the culture of Africa. Everest Base Camp, just being around 4,000 metre peaks, then so in the first few days you see these 4,000 metre peaks that are beautiful, and then you open up your windows of these little hotel rooms in these guest houses, and it's just this snow-covered mountain there that's like a picture, and you go, wow, it's amazing. The locals kind of look at you like whatever because they're everywhere. Then the next couple of days it's 6,000 metre peaks, and then after a few more days it's 7,000 and 8,000 metre peaks, and you feel this tiny minuscule thing compared to that, and it's amazing. And so they've all got such different appeals. When there was no war on in Russia, I used to go to Russia. Amazing. The Russian people are pretty intense, but when they know you're not American, they treat you pretty well. They don't like Americans still, but beautiful country, like a really beautiful country. So it's really hard to put it down to one. But Kokoda would be at the top of my list for lots of reasons.
Well, this one also, another question that come in, elevator pitch me a Kokoda trip. Ding! Doors closing.
60 seconds. So to me, Kokoda, well, I've kind of already said it. Kokoda is a physical, mental and emotional journey. Who people are at the start of Kokoda versus who they are at the finish are two very different people. You learn to live in a culture for those few days that you're out there where people are living in grass huts, mud floors, they've got food, they've got water, they've got family, and they don't need anything else. And what you realise is in Western society, we need lots of things to be happy. But you can have the new car and the bigger house and you'll be happy for a period of time because you've achieved it. But eventually it's just, oh, okay, I've got that thing, and now you're looking for the next thing. And I think you get to press pause and just experience true, genuine happiness. You'll see 3 generations of families sitting around together, laughing and cooking dinner together. And who gets to do that in Australian society? You'll see kids running around playing. You can give a football to a group of kids or even one tennis ball and they're happy. You try giving one football to a group of kids only as a gift, it's not getting shared around. One kid's going to own it and the other kids are going to go, well, why didn't I get anything? That's just not how they are over there. They're just so appreciative of everything that it totally changes the way you look at how we interact as humans. And I think that we are so far away from how humans should be, and we're stuck on that hamster wheel. And one day PNG will probably catch up with us, and I think that'll be a sad thing for them because they'll look back at these generations and go, this is amazing. And if you've never experienced something like that, you really should.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an elevator pitch, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's even like our kids. Like, we do spoil them and I overcompensate. I give them most of the things that they want at the best of those things.
Yeah.
And then it's always the next thing.
Yeah.
And then I go home and I realize, like, we didn't grow up like that and we were so happy. Like I've said it many times, I can't fault my childhood.
Yeah. And you've often said to me something which I disagree with at a level, but I understand where you're coming from. You'll say to me, or you have said to me in the past, they didn't ask to be born. And I understand that. But then I also think we also need to put some sort of things in place so that they don't just think the world gets handed to them all the time, because at some point it won't. And God forbid it, we're ever not around. Obviously, I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But if that happens, as you've experienced with kids who don't have parents around when in the work, the world doesn't care about them. And it comes down to them. So, and I've made those mistakes with my kids at different points where they become entitled, and then all of a sudden, and I've seen it with other kids where they don't want to work, and why? Things just get handed to us, don't they? And so I want to make sure...
The kids will be working.
And I just want to make sure we're teaching them those things. So every now and then, I read I think I told you yesterday, from a psychologist with children's psychologists saying sometimes just say no to children, but don't explain yourself. Because with us, I often explain myself. Millie doesn't. She'll just say no, but I'll explain myself. Marley in particular will want to...
Oh, he'll go off on these conversations with the kids and I'm just sitting there going,
and he'll just try and talk it around, and I'll try and justify it so they understand. But the psychologist said, just say no, and not today. And they go, why not? Why can we do this? We go, no, not today. I've already said not today. And let them deal with the fact that you don't get everything you want, and sometimes you just have to deal with that disappointment. 5 minutes later, they'll be out back on their bikes, and they've forgotten about it. So, yeah, there's that, I think, is something that I've had to learn as well. I do agree that they didn't ask to be born, of course, but then we've also got to be careful not to give them everything, which we don't.
No,
but
not everything.
we certainly have at times.
100%.
And then we've learnt that it's never enough.
Yeah.
Because we've had the experience where we went out, drive for an hour, spend 3 hours at the skate park, take all of their mates, pay for everyone. Everyone wants an ice cream. That costs $50. So you're doing all this stuff. And then when we get home, it's like, oh, can we go down here? And so, well, no, mate. Well, why not? Well, we go, oh, we don't get to do anything. And you actually pulled them up and said, are you kidding? We've literally just been out for 5 hours. We didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
We're at this skate park and Marley said, we can stay longer. We said, no, that's our 2 hours or whatever we pay for. They don't even care. You can stay as long as you want. And said, no, we don't want to stay longer. We've actually got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I'll say to him sometimes, no, not today because I'm working, but you could just bring all your stuff and work from the skate
he likes
park.
to solve problems, which I do love about him.
I don't want to work from the skate park.
Oh, Mr. Marley, man. All right, this one. I don't know if we can answer this, but we can try.
All right.
Because it's like, I
Have
don't.
I heard this?
You have.
Okay.
And like, I've not been in this situation, and I hope you haven't. Not that there's anything wrong with being in this situation, but anyway, I'll read it and I'll let. And
I'll get more nervous.
All right.
There was one time at band camp.
Please, no, because I'm about to read the question. You'll be like, oh, okay. All right, I'm closeted. This is the start of the question.
I haven't been in that situation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see? Cool.
Yeah.
I'm closeted, and I don't know how to come out to my parents, my dad in particular. He's the most Aussie bloke you could get, and I feel like, and this one cracked me up, and I feel like me telling him I like peepees would crush him. I'm trying to make light of it, but this is actually something I'm really struggling with. I'm a 22-year-old male.
Okay, so it's a hard one, but I will say I have been in this situation in an extent with my Sammy. I remember when she was 14 and Sammy was very clearly starting to become more dressing like a male. I wouldn't say any stretch of imagination she's masculine, but certainly dressing like a male. And she was always, I noticed she'd always had girlfriends, not officially, but she was always having girlfriends. She wanted to go out for coffee one night, and it's like 9 o'clock at night. We used to do that sort of once a week back when she was living with me. And so I went out and she was like really nervous, and which I could kind of tell. And she said, oh, look, I've got something to tell you. I can't remember the kid's name, but the kid she was hanging out with at the time, so-and-so isn't just my friend, she's actually my girlfriend. And I'm like, that wasn't a shock. To me, it wasn't an issue, but she was so nervous to tell me, and I'm pretty good with stuff. Another experience of that was a good friend of ours, his youngest brother was in the same situation. He is very overtly gay. Like, it's very obvious the way he acts. He's very flamboyant. And when he was like 21, 22, I just assumed everyone knew. Like, everyone knew. But and it wasn't a big secret, but he said his dad's ex-military, and he said, I'm going to tell Dad. And I said, oh, you haven't told your dad? And he said, no. And I said, I reckon he knows. And he said, no. I was like, okay. So anyway, a week later, he come back and said, how'd you go? He said, yeah, I explained the whole thing to him. And he said, I won't say names on that to bring other people in, but he said, so-and-so, not a shock. Like, I've known that for a long time. So maybe your dad already knows. That would be my first answer to that, because people are more perceptive than you think. But if it's something that you don't think he's going to react well to, that you are genuinely fearful of losing the relationship and all that sort of stuff, I think you still have to say something, because you have to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And it would be sad if your father, because we certainly wouldn't reject any of our children based off that, or based off a lot of things, to be honest. You know, there are certain things in humans shouldn't do to each other, but your sexuality isn't one of them. Like, you get to have a choice. So I would hope that you can have that situation or that conversation, and maybe talk to mum or other siblings first about how that conversation happens. But it's just, I think you've got to be true to yourself. I would
very personal thing, the way that you're going to go about it, but I would like, you just got to do it, I guess. I don't honestly have no answers, but you just got to do it. Don't hold that secret for the rest of your life, because it'll really crush you, I feel. And
it's not dissimilar to, in my opinion, to any sort of secrets we keep with around our sexuality. So like for girls, I'd imagine, because of the way society is, when you lose your virginity, it's probably not something you want to talk to either of your parents about, because they want to think that little Sally is this wait until she's getting married, which is not reality for anyone. It wasn't reality for our parents. But they still, that whole idea of your parents knowing certain things about you can be hard. But then sadly, even in today's society, heterosexuality is more accepted. So this is still a different level of that again. So yeah, it is a hard one, but I just don't think you can keep it a secret either, because that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
I have read a story of someone who kept it secret until his father passed away, which is really sad.
So have I. I've had family do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty sad.
Yeah, there was a situation where there were twins, and one of them came out, and the father did not handle that well. And then the father died, and then the other twin came out.
Yeah. I guess
and then they had like this really big kind of falling out. I guess they're mates now again, but they had a falling out because they were like I did it,
and
you
didn't
waited
me.
until Dad died,
Yeah.
and then you did it now, you
Yeah.
know. So they had this massive, like, you didn't have the balls to do it.
Yeah. It is sad, isn't it, that can be a thing. But, if you talk about people brought up in the 40s, 50s and 60s, yeah, I guess it can be a little bit tricky. I think I told you this story about when they had the same-sex marriage referendum that the Australian government spent $150 million on, which was just stupidity, but to vote on. And then my dad's old, and I don't see him very often, but I caught up with him, and I said, that came up, and he goes, I just don't understand this same-sex marriage thing. And I said, well, what don't you understand? And he said, well, call me old-fashioned, but I just want to have a good-looking woman on my knee, and I don't want to be with a man. I said, no, you don't have to be. They're not saying everyone has to be with a man. You can still have a good-looking woman on your knee. You don't have to get rid of your wife. Or I think he thought it was becoming law.
Oh my God.
So anyway, old-fashioned, and call it, it's not old-fashioned, it's just who and what you like.
This last one, I don't know if we might have to put it into another podcast, or if it can just be as simple as answering it. But it'll be simple for me, but I'm not so sure for you.
Okay.
It says, do you guys have good relationships with your parents? I'll say my relationship with my dad was great. I love my dad. He's passed away. I was his little princess. He gave me everything that I wanted all the time. And I just loved him so much.
Do you think you've dealt with his death? I know this is a bit of a segue.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever speak to anyone about it when you were a kid, or when it happened, or is it just something you dealt with yourself?
Yeah.
Do you ever think you should consider it? Or do you think you're good?
I don't know.
I don't know either. You don't want to bring up stuff that makes you feel worse, obviously. But yeah, I just wonder about that, because it's such
Maybe if there was something bad and then he died, then yeah. But I feel like we had a really good relationship up until he died.
Yeah.
And then he did a few things, in his marriage that really had nothing. It was none of my business. Like, I mean, apart from him being my dad, but I was too young to really know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just wonder about that sort of stuff, because you were so close that, and I don't even like to say were, I say because when the Broncos won the grand final, you got quite emotional, and I know you love your Bronx, like hardcore, she loves the Bronx, but that was the first time you really explained it to me, where you said the last time that we won the grand final, my dad was still alive, and he was the reason you followed the Bronx.
Yeah.
And
he
so
loved the Brizzy Bronx. So yeah.
So it was more important than just the Broncos winning a grand final. It was more than just football. It was still a connection with Dad.
Yeah.
And still is, effectively. So I hadn't thought. Like, I want him to win. Don't worry, we're cheering and going off like idiots, but it wasn't the same as the deeper why that you had for it.
And then my relationship with my mum has always been a little bit complicated, because I was just a shit teenager. Like, I was really nasty to her. Yeah. And then there were things that she did that I had hated, and we clashed. But now we're good. So, yeah, I've accepted that, she's also doing life. And she's raised me in ways that, like, I'm pretty happy and proud of. So, yeah.
And you don't have to agree with everything, even now, that your parents think or believe. Like, when you're an adult, you learn that, okay, that's their opinion or belief on something, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just, I might have a different belief. Whereas when you grow up, I think their belief kind of becomes law, and when you start to disagree with it, that becomes a real, separation. Sure. So what would you say to your mum now? Like, she listens. I was going to say if she was listening, but she does listen.
She does listen.
What would you say about your childhood, or would you apologise for the way you behaved? Or
I have.
Yeah.
And I've also thanked her.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful. Because you think about all the things that we do, and as we talked about earlier, like she was going through all this stuff with Dad passing that you were going through as well, but on a different level, obviously, and different levels, deeper level of understanding than what we have. So, yeah, I don't have a good relationship with my parents. So that's a pretty short answer.
Yeah.
But I make an effort. I've made an effort in the last 12 months to forgive. I don't like the word forgive. I have never liked it, but I realise that you've got to move on. And we've made a few attempts over the years, and they've always seemed to have backfired, and then I've always been offended by that. And, I'm not going to get on and carry on much more about that today, but I've reached out to both of them recently, but we don't have deep conversations or, and even virtually what I see online, I feel like my dad likes you more than me.
Pretty likeable character.
But that's all right. But, you just try and you realise they're not going to be around much longer. There's no great impact in my life, them being alive or dead. And I don't mean that disrespectful. I mean, nothing's really changes in my life, but they still are your parents. I moved out of home at 14. So, I went back home just before I joined the army when I was like 17 because I injured myself and I was living on the street more or less because I had no job. And so I went up there for a little while, then joined the army. So, and we didn't have a good relationship there. My dad was a very heavy drinker, very aggressive, very violent. I still remember the last run-in we had around that time, and that's when I decided this is not for me. He's a big man, he's bigger than I am, or he was back then. He's shrinking as people do when they get older. But I was like 76 kilos when I joined the army. I'm 100 and, I was going to say 115, but I'm 118 at the moment. Big boy things.
Big boy.
Yeah, but I don't have a great relationship. I think I'll say this, I've always thought I've dealt with it pretty well now. And that's why I probably asked that question of you and your dad's passing. Since being with you, I've probably learnt that I haven't dealt with some things. Would that be fair?
Yeah, for sure.
And Millie's happy to tell me about that at the appropriate times, in the appropriate ways. But it's made me have to look at that a little bit more. I've probably hidden behind business, work, public persona, how I am when I stand on stage and talk to people. That person and that personality can hide all of the little bits of trauma you feel being an unloved child, which is effectively how I felt. And it doesn't matter from my parents' point of view, and this is a message for all parents, it doesn't matter if you think you love your children, they need to feel loved. And I never felt that. I don't ever remember feeling love inside our household. And I don't say that to disrespect my parents at all. It's just, that's my truth. I've spoken to my sisters about it, or my older sister in particular, and that's just because she moved out of home young as well, 15 or 16, so a year before me. So, I think what I would hope for all kids out there that have parents living at home with them, that they feel loved. I was just caught up with a mate of ours this morning, Paul Doherty, from PD Project Deliveries. Paul's a good friend of ours, and we talked a bit about this. We don't just sit around and talk business, although we talked a bit of that, but we talked about how he's trying to be more present when he comes home, and what he started doing is for that first 2 hours when he gets home, he puts his phone away. He said, which is really hard for him with the business that he has and having the contact and all that. But his young one, Ziggy, he just realises at 3 years of age, cannot wait for him to get home. He's so excited. And he said, I used to be like just kind of doing work and getting annoyed, and Ziggy's hanging off me, mate, I'll get back to you in a minute. And his wife Bonnie said, you've got to be present with him now, because one day he's not going to want to come up and hug you and hold on to you. He's going to want, like our boys now, they want to go and ride.
They want to go ride. Yeah. And this morning they left and I heard them leaving, and I phoned one of them and I was like, you didn't even say goodbye to me. And then he's like, oh, okay, bye. I'm like,
yeah.
See ya.
So Paul's learnt that, and I learnt that years ago from a Brendan Burchard sort of thing that I did, where he was saying that first hour, when he said 1 hour when you come home, be fully present. Don't talk about your day. Don't talk about how crap this was or that bad thing that happened. Just be present for that hour. And so, yeah, Paul's talking about that, and I hope as a result kids grow up feeling a bit more loved. Because I know in my generation, which is slightly different, I guess, than your generation now, but or not. I guess your mum and my parents are about the same age. So, in their 70s and nearly 80. But it was kind of that children should be seen and not heard thing. It was kind of, sit down, shut up. Like kids, I read this thing that was saying that all we want is for our kids to walk and talk. We get so excited when they make the first steps and when they say their first words. And then all of a sudden, by the time they're 5 or 6, it's like, sit down and shut up. Because they have all the words. And just be more present with that stuff. I wish I'd known that when I was younger. Just to be more present. Like I did the best job I could as a parent. I think we all do. I say to you, I think you're a really good mum, but you beat yourself up a lot about it. But there have been plenty of times, even when we're together, but particularly when you were single, where you've got to be the sole provider. You've got to be the mum and the dad and the everything in between. And I've watched you work, double shifts, like an afternoon shift, take an extra shift into a night, come home at 8 o'clock in the morning after being awake for 24 hours and then going to footy with the kids. Now, they don't understand all of that. All they know is that we're going to footy. They don't realise what it's like to be awake all night. They don't understand that side of things. So we have to put our hand on heart and know that we're doing the right things there. You've done the right things in the past. You do what it takes to get by. You're not a victim. But they feel love that you're at the footy. They just want you to watch them. They don't care that you've been awake for 24 hours.
They don't give two shits. Because what are we doing after the footy is the question that I hear.
You're always sleeping. Always haven't slept for 24 hours. What else have we got?
No, that's what we got.
Can I share one?
Yes.
So last week we did the episode about the police and our sort of experience there. Mm-hmm. I guess it could have come across as a bit of a negative, but that wasn't the intention, and I think people know us. But we got a reply to that, which is quite long-winded, but a very good, deep one. And it just said, "Hey, Glenn and Mili, I won't name names. So this is a good news story about the response of a police to a domestic violence case, mine. In 1989, I was 26 years old. I took a bus from Sydney to Canberra to visit a friend and stay with her and her partner for the weekend. I took a cab from the bus station to her home. When I got there, I heard a bit of commotion, so I let myself in when nobody opened after I knocked. I found her on the 3rd floor of their home, laying on the floor, using her hands to protect her face while he was kicking her head like it was a football. I went to pull him off her and received a punch to the mouth, resulting in me falling down the stairs. I was bleeding from the mouth. I was in shock. I took my suitcase and left, walking towards where I could hear cars. It wasn't long before a cab was passing that I hailed and asked him to take me to the nearest police station. The federal police, because this is Canberra, the federal police were wonderful. I told them what happened and that my friend was still in danger. So while one took me to the interview room, 2 others left to the address I gave them. After my statement was taken, I was asked if I wanted to be taken to hospital straight away or if I was willing to wait an hour for the forensic photographer to arrive. And it goes on a bit about to say why that was the case. I said I would wait. The police were caring and attentive while I waited for that 1 hour to pass. The federal police represented me in court. In Canberra, they had some law that made that possible, so I did not have to go back and attend court myself, which I think is actually a good thing because they're conscious of what that's like for someone. My friend had told me that he had laid his hands on her several times prior to that day. The police told me that she did not want charges laid when they arrived at their home. She called me asking me to drop my complaint. I refused and I lost her friendship. When I was told I was pregnant a few months later, I realised it was during that very early stages of pregnancy that I fell down those stairs. I don't regret reporting him or losing the friendship. He ended up being found guilty and only went to jail for a couple of months, but I was grateful that because of me, he had a record. So if he did it again, he would keep going to jail, which I've been told was a preventative because he didn't get that violent again, or so I was told. I grew up in a home where there was alcoholism, domestic violence, where as a child I had no say or control. That day, taking charge empowered me. My daughter is now 35 years old. I did my darndest to protect her. She has never been in a situation where she felt like she was at risk. I left her father before she was born because he lifted his hands too. He threatened to hit me with a cricket bat on the cricket field. I asked someone on the field to drive me to the closest station. When I got home, he called begging forgiveness. I did not take him back. Good. So that's all that side of it. Then she finishes this by saying, for the past 25 years, I've been in a relationship with a man who is so in control of his emotions. This man has never even raised his voice when angry at me. He demands the same respect back. I come from a family of women who shout when angry. The first time I responded that way, he told me he refused to be spoken to that way, and if I continued, he'd switch off, so my shouting was pointless. I had to reflect on my own responses and eventually learn to not shout. No one listens or hears when you say what you say when you shout anyway. So what I like about that is there's so many layers to it. The first layer is that, like, standing up for yourself after being punched and knocked down a set of stairs, but also for your friend, even though they're refusing to, which is pretty common in domestic violence. Like, good on you. That takes a lot of strength
100%.
to do that. And I think, sadly, I would be willing to lose a friendship rather than let this man get away with that.
Yeah, same.
Because he's going to do it to other women, if not to your friend.
Well, of course.
And it can end up
He'll continue to do it.
End up killing someone.
Yeah.
So there's that. The other side of it is, obviously it's cathartic. It helps you deal with what you've been through as a young person. And I know you wouldn't take domestic violence. You know, you've been in situations, but you've become stronger as a result of it, and you've got less tolerance for someone who does a thing to you, whether raise a voice or whatever they're doing. And you've been in situations with your own family members. So, well, why wouldn't you just stay? Well, because, it was only a little thing. Yeah, but little things become, if it's consistent, becomes the next big thing if it's not addressed. So I like that she handled it that way. And then having found someone who's now emotionally stable, because it's easy for us to believe, and I know for women, that all men are like that. All men are going to be violent at some point, and we don't want our boys to grow up thinking that's okay to treat women that way. But then even talking about handling her own responses to things, and that's just, I feel like a phase that we're going through now, where we're both learning to handle our responses to things, because we respond differently. We're very open about that, and we trigger each other sometimes. That's what it is. We're both very passionate people, but I also think we've come a long, long way, would you say?
Yeah.
In how we handle it. Doesn't mean we're perfect. We're far from it. But we recognise quicker when we respond in a way. And here's the thing, you might feel totally justified in responding that way. In this person's case, her whole family of women have responded a certain way. And being with the man she's with now, it's taught her a different way, which is not a bad thing. So there's so many layers to that. So thank you to the person who sent that in, who's a good friend and fan and follower of the show.
Thank you.
And has a lot of input. And
that
we
is
appreciate
a good
that
news
input.
story, and that is a really good way that the police have dealt with that and helped her through that. And so we did ask for that. We did ask for any good news stories, because we didn't want to come across as us just bagging police, which was not what we were doing.
No. And that was just based off our experiences, which again, if we tie back to what we talked about earlier, we don't want to run a lens of just what we've experienced and think there's nothing good out there, because we've got friends in the police and we know, or have had in the past, and there are good news stories out there, and it is a very tough job. We understand all of that. But we were just saying our main message, I feel, from last week was the police do need more training in that area, because they're dealing with people in really vulnerable situations. Again, the domestic violence stats in Queensland are the highest they've ever been in 37 years of reporting. We need to be doing something about that at some level. Education, it needs to start with young boys into men, and I'm very big with the boys about how they speak to you when they're angry or so on. And of course, we've got to be conscious the same, not to be angry back at them, which I'm trying to be way more conscious of. So even when they do things that can inflame you, you still got to, because we're teaching them how to treat other people. So I don't know how else to solve that. I'm certainly not an expert in that space.
No.
But we're just all doing the best that we can in the spaces that we've got. So
Yeah.
So what are we going to cover? We've only got one session. We normally do 2 sessions in a week, and then we record every second week. In the coming weeks, we wanted to talk about some deeper things. We've had some really heavy questions around stuff. We've had questions around a little bit more depth around open relationships, questions around that, and some people kept giving us their stories and their versions of it.
Some
Good,
questions about
bad.
cheating, or what could be considered cheating or not cheating.
Yeah.
So we could talk about those in the next coming weeks.
And we wanted to talk a little bit about, because this interests me, and Millie and I talk about everything that she's been through in her life and vice versa. And there are things that you tell me, which I guess I understand as a man, but you don't understand fully unless you've experienced it. But how young girls, and you're experiencing this now in the workplace, how young girls can be treated by older men, and sometimes you can say boys, sort of even a 14-year-old and 18-year-old, still, I guess, kids, but an 18-year-old's a man, and then how they can use that age to sort of, for want of a better word, con young girls. So we want to talk about that, because I think that's a whole in-depth conversation as well, what the experience of the world is for a woman, for a young woman, or a young girl.
Yeah, it's wild. And more often than not, you'll come across girls who've grown into womanhood who'll think back on their life as a young teenager and go, that guy was a predator.
Yeah.
Because he was 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, and I was 14 years old. And I was 15 even. And, so...
You've said that to me.
Yeah.
That at the time...
Most girls that I know have that experience.
So at the time, you think you're making an adult decision.
At the time, you think this person is so cool. Like, you're like, oh my God, he thinks I'm cool because he's older and, like, I'm the coolest person ever.
And they do the old, you're so mature for your age.
Vomit. I will stab you.
Now, but back then...
Back then, you think that is
want to be
cool.
older.
And they really, really prey on that. And I saw someone put it into perspective like this. And they're like, you probably wouldn't see a 27-year-old trying to hang out with a 14-year-old boy because they're too immature. So why are you trying to hang out with a 14-year-old girl? you know?
Yeah.
So
So
we'll
no
talk
girls
about
their
that.
own age are onto them.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next coming weeks.
Yeah. So we don't just like this show's always been about personal development, obviously, but it's also about lived experiences and living our experiences. So it's probably changed over the years as I've developed and grown and changed and had experiences. But we want to delve into the fun topics. We laugh a lot, we cry a little bit, but we also want to delve into deep topics. So, and then I love that we get some feedback on those. I'll say, hey, this is my experience. So, and even when the domestic violence towards women, I was training an athlete years ago, and she was saying to me that most of her friends have experienced some level of physical or sexual violence. And she was like 22 or 23 at the time, and you feel like we're better than that, but we're not still. So the fact that that's still out there is something that as a grown man, you think, oh, really? That's just because I don't physically ever want to assault a woman doesn't mean that people don't do that.
No. And I know, 25-year-olds, 27-year-old, who I know, say, 14-year-old girls who have been in a relationship with a 25, 26-year-old. And at the time you don't think much of it. And I've hung out definitely with much older guys than me, but at that point in your life, you're still a child.
Yeah.
And that person who you're hanging out with is
a full
an adult and like almost 30,
Yeah.
So it's so different to say our situation where we're both adults.
Yeah. I was going to say, we'll definitely, when we have that conversation, open ourselves up to the trolls out there who will say, oh, but there's a 20-year age gap for you guys. So when she was 14, you were 34, I'm just doing quick math. But you're in your 30s. It's different. You are a grown adult with children, with lived experiences, who gets to make a choice, as opposed to the 14-year-old version of you who thought she was grown up.
Yeah.
But
because you think, like we're going to speak about, most women will look back on that time and go, what the hell was I thinking? We weren't thinking because we were children.
Yeah.
Now you're an adult and you can look back and go, oh my God, if I had that time again, I'd be like, you're a disgusting predator because you're an adult and I'm not an adult.
Yeah, because we look at Samuel's 12, so we know in 2 more years he's not going to be that much more mature than he is now. So,
and imagine he's saying, like, it doesn't happen because, but imagine he's hanging out with a 27-year-old woman and she's like coming to pick him up and shit.
Pick him up and just taking him out to the movies.
Yeah, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing that a lot in the, I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely experiencing it in the youth space now because there's no parents for these men to be scared of.
Yeah.
And as youth workers, you don't really have a right. Child Services doesn't allow you to step in and go, hang on a minute, mate, like you're an adult. Whereas if I was the dad or you're the mum, you'd be out on that street, you'd be taking a number plate, you'd be warning them that if I see you around here again.
Yeah.
But they don't have that. So these kids get
we do
preyed
take
on
number
even
plates,
more.
But
But these kids do get preyed on even more, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's for their safety, but that's a whole
for
other
sure.
conversation. So we want to get into some deep conversations as well as some fun conversations. So some weeks they're not going to be for you. Other weeks you'll probably have to warn people that could be triggers in certain episodes, but always it's honestly I want people to learn lessons from our experiences. Not saying we know everything, we're not gurus, we're not trying to be, but we're people that have lived a bit of life that we're happy to chat about.
Yeah.
And that is another episode of Mayhem Monday.
Hope you have a great week. The sun's back out.
The sun is out.
It's hot as.
Nice.
It's for me.
You are. See ya.